We are live on YouTube. We are waiting for Facebook to catch up. As usual, there it's starting to kick. And eventually, we go live on Facebook. Hey, everybody. I'm Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today for the news discussion is Rob Morris of the Slowfax blog and a lot of other places. Rob, I don't have the breath to tell everybody everywhere you are. Could you just kind of go through and let people know where they can find your stuff?
I will, but I may have to stop for a breath in between. As you mentioned, my blog is slowfax.wordpress.com. My writing is carried from there at Clash Daily and the Daily Surge. I write a weekly column called The Armed Citizens at Ammoland. And if I've been good, I get to talk with Paul. Usually I co-host with him on the Polite Society podcast. I have my own weekly podcast. I try and keep it much shorter than Paul's. That's called Self-Defense Gun Stories. I have 8 different instructors. We cycle through and look at how we and our neighbors defended ourselves that week. Paul, we were going to talk about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, as I recall.
Yes, Sheila Jackson Lee, the woman we all love to hate. She has put up a couple of Lulus in Congress, H.R. 125, H.R. 127. And these are the gun banners' dream bills. Everything from background checks for everything, all the way to a mental health evaluation for you and your family before you can buy a firearm.
And ammunition.
Yes. So these two, do I think they have a chance of passing? Well, let me ask, Rob, do you think either of these two have a chance of passing?
Yes. Yeah, let's go through it first.
Okay.
We have to start here because White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, quote, Joe Biden would love to see action on gun control. The president promised to act on day one on this issue. This is an issue he's personally committed to, close quote. Now we take 2 bills by Sheila Jackson Lee. We're going to go through all of it. I'm going to take them in reverse order because you'll see in a second. H.R. 127 requires the registration of all firearms and all ammunition across the country. Bans .50 caliber ammunition. Again. Requires a mental health exam for you and anyone who has access to your firearms before you can buy or own guns or ammo. Bans all magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, establishes, of course, a national ammunition registry, just like you have a national firearms registry that's required so the government knows what you own. It also mandates civil liability insurance for gun owners. I didn't see a limit required, whether it was 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. And it makes you pay an $800 fee to be a gun owner. Kind of prices the 1022 that you wanted to give to your kid right out of their league. Also, there are exceptions to all this. They don't apply if you're paid by the government to carry a gun. I want to jump on to 125, Paul, right, in the interest of time? Okay, that bill calls for a 7-day waiting period before taking possession of any semi-automatic firearm. Now, you can own 20 firearms already, all of them semi-auto. Powerful firearms, but for you to get a 1022, we need another 7-day wait because who knows what you might do. Not only just if you want a semi-auto firearm, but a muffler, ammunition, or magazines. And again, the exception is if you're paid by the government to carry a gun. It outlaws person-to-person transfers, except if you're paid by the government. Paul, this is the part we have to dive into, because I think this explains what we see here. Listen to the justifications for this bill. There's some other pretty blatant lies, and I cut them out. These are just the highlights. Representative Lee claims there's nearly one mass shooting in the United States each day, 355 mass shootings in 2015. Are you amazed that very few of them come to mind? To reach those numbers, you have to call the nightly carnage in Chicago and Baltimore and St. Louis and Detroit mass shootings. That's stretching the definition at best and pointing the arrow about where the problem belongs back to big blue cities. Since 2012, Lee claims that there have been 1,518 mass shootings with 1,700 people killed, more than 6,000 people wounded. She claims each day 92 people are the victims of gun violence, more than 33,000 deaths annually. What she fails to tell us is that the vast majority of these are victims of drug gangs, are mostly gang members, and that Democrats want to open our borders to allow more gang members and drugs to cross them. She claims, and this is the one we have to tear into, I can't let it go, that there have been 0 mass shootings stopped by armed civilians in the last 33 years. Paul, this is a press release. This isn't a piece of legislation. It's against the law for us to lie during congressional testimony. Evidently, it's not only allowed but encouraged for congresswomen to lie to us. Now, if you're driving, you might not remember your recent history. Most of the mass murders that we've seen in recent years were in gun-free zones. We know by the FBI's own numbers that there were at least 5 mass murders stopped by civilians in recent history. I've counted over a dozen. My colleagues have counted more. Let me remind you of a few of those incidents from just last year. Think back to the 2 armed citizens. They stopped mass murder in Texas churches last year.
Yep.
You remember? Do you remember? Jackson Lee would like them disarmed. Remember the armed civilian who stopped mass murder at a California synagogue. We know that the number of people murdered when an armed civilian is present is typically fewer than 3. Yep. If we're going to then weigh the 10 to 13 minutes beyond that for the police to arrive, that number jumps up to about 15 or more. Time is the enemy here, not your honest neighbor who owns a gun. Paul, this is easy to tear apart these lies, but it's dangerous because it misses the point. It really misses the point. We defend ourselves every day, and we do it by the thousands.
Yeah.
Right? Our best estimate is that honest gun owners use a firearm to stop murder or a similar violent crime over 1 million times a year.
Some estimates go up to 5 million.
Right. I'm putting a number that is hard to. A few studies were as low as half. Yeah. I'm using a median to low number. I agree with you. It's probably far higher. But think about it. If you're one of those million, you might have saved your whole family by scaring away an armed intruder at night.
Yep.
So the number of people saved is far higher. That's just the number of events. Now remember, this includes tens of thousands of sexual assaults that were stopped. Those 1 million people become victims of violent crime when we disarm them. I think that's what Representative Lee wants. She wants to say, look, America's turned so violent. Now we need to introduce the police state.
I want to.
Who's go, Paul? What do we got on social media?
We've got a lot of social media coming in. Victoria Davis says this will never pass the Supreme Court. I agree, Victoria, under the current settings of the Supreme Court, under its current configuration. If it gets passed by Congress, and by the way, I want to talk in a little bit how we can stop that. But if it gets past Congress, gets to the president's desk, the president signs it, the Supreme Court, as it sits today, February 4th, 2020, it's a slam dunk that at least part of this is going to go away.
Paul,
it's not a guarantee, though.
Thank you, because for all we know, Chief Justice Roberts will shout at the new justices. They'll shut up and won't take the case. They'll say, this was created by legislation, it can be fixed by legislation. Pretty weak defense of the Constitution, if you ask me. I want to go back to what this bill means.
Mm-hmm.
It means grandma doesn't chase away a home invader. Instead, the robber gets to beat grandma. Co-eds don't stop sexual assault. Instead, they get raped. That isn't progress. That's a return to feudal barbarism when the strong ruled the weak. And unless you were a ruler who had armed men to protect yourself, well, and these days also a fancy refrigerator filled with ice cream, then the rest of the people, while the rest of the people are disarmed. Paul, this is a press release. This was designed to say, well, one, to pay Bloomberg back, to create a window of opportunity. This is what we want. We'll settle for disarming a third of you, and a third, and a third, and a third, and pretty soon.
Yeah, it's the old adage of, you know, the joke where, well, the guy goes into the room. There's a naked lady at on a bed at the other end of the room. You can only go halfway there every time, and the scientist gives up. Said, I'm never going to get there. The engineer says, eventually I'm going to get close enough.
I'm going to get close enough. So my biggest fear is that the media will echo the lies contained in this bill. And Paul, God bless you and the Second Amendment Foundation for telling the truth, for putting it out everywhere, including social media, and for the people who listen to it and spread it to stop the lies.
I would like to go into, Rob, just a little bit here, how we can stop this from ever getting out of Congress, because I do believe we can. There's only a 10-vote majority in the House for Democrats right now, and it's direct even split in the Senate. We need to turn exactly one senator to make sure this doesn't happen. And that can happen.
I think we need to turn more than that, because we have rhinos like Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Right? We don't forget them. We have nominal Democrats. We think of the senator from West Virginia who says he supports your gun rights. But Paul, to get there, before we go there, and it's important, I have to ask the Democrats who voted for Biden, and these Democrats, hey, I'm a pro-gun Democrat. What did you think was going to happen? Issued on the 4th of January. What did you think was going to happen? So you can be a pro-gun Democrat, you just don't vote pro-gun. Explain to me what you were thinking. And as you say, how do we stop it? We got to get on the phone.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Get on the phone, call your friends, post it to social media. By the way, if you get banned on Facebook, there are other social media sites now. Lots of them.
Well, I want to key off on that. There's several ways to get hold of your elected representative. There's regular old snail mail, which is, by the way, extremely effective. Those have to be filed. There is email. There's phone calls. There's faxes, which also need to be logged and filed. There are a lot of ways to get hold of them. Don't stop with one. Call them, and then email them. And then get your printer, dust off your printer, write out a regular letter, hand sign it, and send it. Now, when you do this, I mean, Rob, you and I have gone over this for years on the Polite Society podcast. Yep. When you do it, be polite, be persuasive. Don't, you dirty so-and-so is going to get you nowhere. But state your case logically, and that's the most effective you can be. But don't just use one method. Don't just email and think, well, I did my job. It's great that you emailed, but keep going.
Paul, I want to amplify what you said. You have to name the bill, say you don't like it, give 1 or 2 reasons, write that out for yourself before you call, send it as an email, print your email, send it as a fax, sign it, put it in an envelope. Now, so you're not doing any more work. By the way, a 5-page epistle doesn't count any more than a 5-sentence email.
You're right.
Just get it brief, get it to the point. Paul, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we are up at that time, aren't we? Wow. All right, folks. Thank you for we have got just a. You know what? I want to take just a couple minutes.
Yeah, let's take
to go through the social media comments. Where are we at? I want to get to, because there's Lonnie's, and I'm just going to go ahead and put these up, and I'll rifle through them. Lonnie says we must not surrender our Second Amendment rights. I totally agree. And Mario, this is the one I was looking for. Mario says, H.R. 127 will cost you thousands to keep your guns. Who will pay for those psych evals? That's a great point. Sir. Uncle Sam certainly isn't going to. And I don't know of a psychologist that charges less than $150 to $200 an hour.
And what's fascinating is the Supreme Court can say, oh, that's not a taking. Oh, no, that's reasonable legislation. We've seen them pass bigger camels through the eye of a needle. Yes. Mario, you're spot on.
Amen. All right. Well, I think, and we've gotten dozens of comments. I do not have time to get through to all of them. I want to thank everybody for commenting. I want to remind you, I've taken some time off early this week. I had a family member pass away, and I will be going back starting today. We're going back to a daily broadcast Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time. And Saturday, we're going to be doing the weekly bullet, which will be at noon Central Time. And the weekly bullet is kind of like the first 15 minutes of the daily bullet, only it's a full 1 hour discussion about all the topics of the week. So please come join us. Please subscribe to the channel if you're watching us on YouTube. Hit the notification bell when you do so you know when we're live again. And those on Facebook, please make sure you're liking our Facebook page and you select that you get notifications from us so you do know when we are broadcasting live. What we're going to do right now, I did an interview yesterday with Teresa Einacker of CNJFO. Boy, I always get this one wrong. It's the Coalitions of New Jersey Firearms Owners. But we talked to her about advocacy in New Jersey, what's going on in New Jersey, and why we all need to still have hope that good things are going to be coming. Thanks again, and join us tomorrow for another one. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet, the recorded version. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Teresa Einacker. Teresa is with CNJFO. You've heard her on the weekly bullet before, and we wanted to give a little bit more time for her to tell her specific story, so we invited her to come on to the Daily Bullet. Teresa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So let's get started with, I guess, kind of a generic question. Why gun rights? What brought you into gun rights advocacy?
I've always loved the Constitution. So when I was in law school, I was a managing editor of the Constitutional Law Journal. I published a constitutional article, actually about commercial speech in New Jersey. So I've always been a lover of the Constitution, and the Second Amendment is really that hands-on, practical application of the Constitution in your daily life. So I've always had an affinity for it. Years back, I was attacked basically by a wounded deer in my backyard. It was trying to trample me, and I know that might sound crazy, but have you seen those videos of
yes,
deer attacking people? So it had been struck by a car somewhere and traveled through my yard and was trying to attack me, and I was trying to get away from it, and it was I have to say, it really woke me up about how unpredictable nature can be. And I thought to myself, the only thing that would have helped me at that point, was a firearm. So I decided to go through the process. Hey, how hard could it be, right? So I applied for a New Jersey firearm purchase ID card. And as I went through that process, that's what really kicked me into motion about becoming an activist. It took a long time to process the paperwork. It was an arduous process. And they asked some very odd questions of my personal references. In New Jersey, you have to provide personal references, and the questions are really supposed to, stick with what's required in the statute. Am I an ineligible person for some reason? Whatever it may be, a criminal background, drugs, all those questions you expect. What my reference didn't expect was for them asking me what was my relationship like with my husband. And I found that just so a sexist and off the wall, bizarre, really inappropriate and irrelevant. Because, hey, why else would a woman want a firearm if she never had one before? She must have a problem with her husband, right?
Wow.
So I have to tell you, that really jump-started me. And I realized that there were severe flaws with the system, the permitting system, and everything else just spiraled from there. The more you pay attention, the more you realize there's, exactly what's going on. So once I got dragged into that process, and of course I was approved, my friend chuckled and said there's not a problem there. But my reference was not expecting that question. Neither was I. I'm glad they told me that was asked of them. And that's how it all started for me.
Okay. So in the process, and I have to wonder if a lot of people that their advocacy doesn't start when they have to jump through hoops that really shall not be infringed, should cover, So and how long ago was that you just tried to purchase that first firearm?
I believe that was about 12 years ago for me. So when I was a youngster, my uncle, who was a hunter, really the only gun owner in my family, he had allowed us to shoot pellet guns, taught us safety. He had a very large, acreage in his backyard. Believe it or not, that exists in places in New Jersey. And so that was the only time I'd ever fired a gun. I had only done that when I was a young child, and then, never really, I guess, thought that it was something I wanted to do. I really wasn't checked into the process. And after having my experience with, scary part of unpredictable nature, and I do believe, humans are unpredictable, nature's unpredictable, you just never know. And then things escalated from there. So about 12 years ago, and of course, been part of that process several times. I've requested handgun permits, which is a separate process as well. You can't just have a New Jersey Firearms purchase ID card. That's for long arms. And if you want to have a handgun, you have to go through a separate process, pay another fee, wait again. The longest I've waited for those was about 6.5 months. The statute says it should take 30 days. But in New Jersey, they get away with it. But we do have some challenges on deck for that.
Sure. So let's then that logically takes us to the next step. There are several Second Amendment advocacy organizations in New Jersey. You are affiliated with CNJFO. I want to ask, why do you work with them and not some of the other ones that are present in New Jersey?
It's a great question. New Jersey is, what is it? The necessity is the mother of invention. So, of course,
yes,
it's so infringed here. That's why you have a huge, groundswell of Second Amendment advocacy groups. So it's really a hotbed of groups and a hotbed of action. And people across the country probably don't know that. But, we are going to the mat every day, right? CNJFO it's a the best organization. I worked with these people over the years with different organizations that had some, board changes, administrative type changes that, kind of had gone into some waves of being active and then not so active. CNJFO is the most active group. It's the most active group. It is properly formulated 501c3 organization with trustees, which now I'm a trustee. We have regular meetings, minutes, all of those sorts of things. It's very well organized. So I do like the administrative side of it, that there's, we basically are structured very well administratively, very active. But we're also very active when it comes to the outreach, educating youth, events, trying to keep the people involved when we can. Before COVID, we were doing, youth shoots and attending the diversity shoots, you name it. We have pheasant hunts, fundraisers, all sorts of things. They helped out with the DC project, helped raise so that the New Jersey ladies could have the Teal for 2A t-shirts from DC project, which was very important. So it's a wonderful group. Volunteers are fantastic. I have myself been members of the other groups as well. And there's a sanctuary, a 2A sanctuary group in this state. And I worked with them to get a 2A sanctuary passed in my town. It was fantastic. So we don't always, we don't see each other necessarily as adversaries. Some groups are able to really work together when it's time for that. CNJFO has worked with ANJRPC, which is the state's NRA affiliate, on filing and carry litigation. Again, the state NRA affiliate is going to have a different flavor than the all volunteer trustee 501c3 group that we are. So it's just a matter of, who could use my talents and who was willing to use my, talents. I don't mean that in any kind of like conceited way, but
right.
Where can I apply what I know to help make this happen in the state? So CNJFO is the greatest fit for me for that reason. And so.
All right, well, and one other thing, and we've talked about this before, twice, but we're going to make it round 3, simply because I think it's such an important message, and that is, you are in New Jersey, which is, if not the worst, at least in a 3-way or 4-way tie for the worst situation for gun rights in the United States, and you're still hopeful. And I think that's important, that no matter your situation, you still remain hopeful and you still proceed as if things are going to get better. And you exemplify that, Teresa. Why do you think it's important to remain hopeful and stay positive in a situation? Just to put it bluntly, we've got an anti-gun president, a very anti-gun vice president, and a Congress, while the House would pass gun legislation if they could, they probably will, and the Senate is right on the edge. Why is it important for you to stay hopeful right now?
It's very important to stay hopeful, and we have every reason to be hopeful because there are people like me, countless people who are willing to step up and not be infringed. There is the idea that the power remains in the hands of the people. We have 3 branches of government. So one branch right now may not be working in our favor, but there could be other branches that could. So, at this point, we use a 3rd branch. We'll go to the judiciary. Our system is really brilliant in that we do have a way to petition our redresses and as long as you can stay organized and focused and hopeful and ask for the outcome that you want, you're headed in the right direction. So we filed, lawsuits galore here in New Jersey. The 10-round mag limit, people are worried about that because it's proposed right now. There's a House bill proposing a 10-round mag limit. We've already been at that. But aren't you guys happy that little old New Jersey has been fighting that in federal court since 2018? And the very next step would be applying to SCOTUS for relief. Why? So that you don't have to wait another 3 years or another 6 years to get something through the court system. So we were doing all of these things. It takes time. There's somebody else out there who's probably, also pushing cases through, depending on what their state situation is. Everyone could benefit from that if we actually get the SCOTUS to resolve it in our favor. So we continue to push cases up, unless and until they rule against us. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to keep going. So my governor doesn't have the last word. My legislature here in New Jersey and the governor can conspire to, infringe on Second Amendment rights like they have done from day one in office. And we will continue to file litigation to take down that. So we will always be there to challenge it. And as long as I challenge something and I don't really agree and consent to it, I'm a free person. I'm asserting myself. I'm making it abundantly clear we do not agree with what they're doing, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to file those cases. We're going to get the cases through the courts. That means people have to pony up, donations for litigation funds.
Right.
They have to, there are a lot of really good attorneys out there representing on these cases, very experienced. Think about it. We refer back to the Heller case. Can you imagine how he felt when DC was, knocking on his door and he stood up? It takes courage to stand up when you are not in power and in control. It takes great courage because, otherwise you wouldn't need courage if it was easy. So you have to keep the hope alive. You have to. This isn't just my right. This is a right of every generation after me. I'm not going to have them imagine in my mind. They're going to say, what were those people doing in 2020 and 2021? Why did they allow that to happen? We asked those questions in New Jersey. How did this happen over decades of infringement? But we don't want future generations to say that to us. It belongs to them also, not just to us. So we really don't have a choice to give up. Giving up's not in my nature anyway. Very, tenacious. And you have to find that somewhere and understand, if you envision in your mind that the fact that you're fighting back and you're filing the lawsuits and you're organizing the way that you need to be and using those three branches, whichever will be successful, then you're not going along with the program. You're making it very clear that you have hope, that it will be resolved in our favor, and we'll go from there. So
one point I'd like to make, we've only got a couple minutes left, but it's often said what happens in New York, what happens in New Jersey, what happens in California spreads when they're talking gun control. But what happens in New York, what happens in New Jersey, what happens in California instantly spreads throughout the nation when we're talking court cases, at least those that go to SCOTUS.
That's right. So what happens is there's an idea of about precedent, is called stare decisis. It's this idea that case law is binding, once a big decision is made. It would be binding across the country. So right now you have, California has their circuit out there, Ninth Circuit, and all the states within those circuits operate under the decisions made there. Same as in New Jersey. We're in the Third Circuit. So Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the U.S. Virgin Islands, right? They fall under the Third Circuit. New York has their own circuit. So what you're having right now, parts of the country are operating under different levels of infringement, different levels of being able to exercise civil rights. It's up to the Supreme Court to resolve those conflicts when there's a conflict. And when they do, it applies to everybody across the country. And it could take a generation. Basically, it could really have implications for a generation. Think about Dick Heller's cases going on, 12, 13 years now? So all that time, we've been filing cases. People have been filing cases in these deeply infringed states, but the court has been refusing. And that, that talk about a kick, a kick while you're down. That's pretty bad when you put all your, So, but you have to rally the troops and say, I have hope, and you're going to stick with me, and we're going to keep fighting this until it's resolved.
Very cool. Well, we're pretty much a little bit over time now, but before we go, I think it's really important if somebody's interested in CNJFO, and I want to stress this, you do not have to be a resident of New Jersey to join CNJFO. If, for example, you live in a great state like South Dakota and you want to help out where it's needed, join CNJFO, how do they do that?
That's awesome. So if you go to cnjfo.com/join-us, it'll take you right to the membership. So cnjfo.com or justifiableneed.com is another way to find us. We're on Facebook for now, for however long that lasts. We're on Twitter for however long that lasts. And Instagram also, we're trying to build up some other platforms as well. But our website is stable, so you can certainly check us out there. We have the Blackwire Media blog there. We have all kinds of articles. We tell you about cases, things that are happening, things in the news, proposed laws, how to, handle it, email your legislator and that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of always interesting stuff going on in New Jersey. You don't have to live in the state to be a member. And we welcome everybody. Appreciate the help.
Awesome. Well, Teresa, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Folks, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel so you know when we're doing another live video, which we will be doing tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody.